Well, after our most recent federal election, the topic of separation has come up again in Canada. And no, it's not about Quebec. It's about Alberta this time and growing dissatisfaction in the province about its relationship with Canada, economic, political, and otherwise. We had a great piece in the Hub recently by Andy Crooks. He's a retired lawyer, former head of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, breaking it all down for us. Andy, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Rudyard. Good to be on with you. I certainly enjoy your show.
Well, we enjoy your writing here at the Hub and urge everyone to head over to www.thehub.ca to check out Andy's article. Let's dig into it, though. I think what's really important about this piece is that you're setting out the kind of fact terms that are guiding our discussion around growing restiveness, let's put it that way, in Western Canada, especially in Alberta. So let's begin with the Clarity Act, because you open your article talking about how the Clarity Act really does set the terms of a possible discussion around that ultimate question of Alberta leaving Canada. How, Andy, is the Clarity Act so determinant in these conversations right now?
Well, I think the key to the answer to your question is in your question. The two words, possible and discussion. So if a province, any province, were to follow the steps outlined in the Clarity Act, which is really a process outline, what it opens up is, first of all, the possibility, not as necessity of a discussion or of any further action. But the most likely is that it opens up the possibility of yet further discussions. So what it is likely to result in is an interminable series of commissions and studies and research and high-level meetings between the provinces and the federal government on what the question should be, how it'll be measured, how the vote will be supervised. The agenda list is on and on and on. So it's a process with no real end. And what I saw and what I'm aware of from earlier discussions with representatives from other provinces, particularly Quebec, is that the key, and actually with discussions with legal experts around the world, the key to any sort of new nationhood of a sub-state is recognition by other states of that status. If a province were to successfully conclude a negotiation with Canada and in fact declare its own sovereignty and statehood, it does no good until some other country is willing to say, okay, we'll host you, here's your ambassador, we'll appoint you an ambassador or a consular general, and by the way, we'll negotiate some treaties and other stuff with you. And in the early 90s, when the last separation wave came through, the possibility of that was virtually nil. Quebec, as I understand, had a handshake deal with some levels of government in France and several Francophonie countries in Africa. So if the referendum had succeeded, several countries would have put their hand up and said, by the way, we now recognize you, or we're prepared to recognize you. That changes the whole debate. Mm-hmm. Instead of a possibility of discussion, you now have alternatives that you have to deal with. If, again, turning back to the 90s, any province had separated, we're taking steps to separate, the United States under earlier administrations would have said, no, we want you to stay together. We like a stable northern border. Great Britain would have said, no, you stay together. We're worried about Scotland. We don't need other examples of separation. Spain with the Catalans, French with the Basques. No one in the world would have said separation and sovereignty is a great idea. We support that. But now we have a new paradigm down in the States. We have a new presidential administration, a new federal administration that might well tweet or announce, yeah, we think that separation of this province is a great idea. We're prepared to recognize it. Mm-hmm. And by the way, we're looking forward to entering into treaty negotiations, discussing energy, water, transportation, whatever. It's a new paradigm.
Yeah. So I think that's the key issue that your article helps advance here is that, yes, right now, if the Clarity Act was the sole determinant in the future of Alberta's discussions with Ottawa around, let's say at first its role in the Federation, and then beyond that, the possibility of separation, all that would be long, cumbersome, and convoluted. But we have a so-called X factor. That person with the Truth Social media account down in Mar-a-Lago or in the White House. So talk to us a little bit more, Andy, about a scenario where, let's say there are, as we know will happen this summer, there is a kind of a convening, a conference that will be gathering in Alberta to talk about the future of the province and its place in Canada. Talk to us a little bit about how you think the president and his words could be an accelerant to all of this in a way maybe that we're not understanding yet or factoring into our discussions.
Yeah, it's difficult to say, but we saw in the last election how, and I think I referred to him as the change agent in Mar-a-Lago, but how President Trump's words can have an enormous effect on the election outcome, on the campaigning, on the polling, huge effect. And all he does is tweet something. So it's not, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think we have to look too far to see examples of what he can and might do. And there's a consensus view that he's a bit unpredictable, and he will take steps to further what he regards as an important agenda for him. If the United States administration saw an opportunity to push its North American or energy or other agendas forward by recognizing a province, so he's watching Danielle's commission roam around the province, begins to see that there's some sentiment for it, some sentiment that actually looks sensible. He might well say, yeah, you know what? The XL pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline was a good idea. We think tapping into the oil sands is a good idea. Here's a tweet. Yeah. And it wouldn't have to be much. All he'd have to say is, this is a good idea.
Yeah, or just
Alberta's got the right agenda.
Imagine
a simple tweet like that would do it.
Yeah, a tweet along the lines, when I was talking about a 51st state, I wasn't just talking about all of Canada. Really great to see the productive conversations they're having in Alberta this summer. I mean, that would now let's explore that a little bit further, that hypothetical future, because I don't think it is so hypothetical, Andy. How would that affect, do you think, the federal government's immediate conversations right now with Alberta? Surely this would put the federal government on its back foot, because it would begin to realize that there was this large interlocutor, i.e. the President of the United States, who was now starting to crowd his way into this conversation between Alberta and Ottawa. Could this lead, Andy, to possibly a more conciliatory or more proactive stance on the part of Ottawa to some would say placate, others might say solve some of Alberta's concerns about the current terms of its participation in the Federation?
Yeah, I do. Well, your use of the word back foot is interesting. I think it would get the Laurentian elite to their feet, which it would be a step in the right direction, just to get them to pay attention. Which they don't seem to be doing. Andrew Coyne and all his crowd just are rolling their eyes, and whenever the subject of Alberta comes up, and as every marriage counselor knows, the signs of disaster in a marriage are when one half of the couple's rolling their eyes when the other half says something. A marriage counselor would love to see an argument, a genuine, thought through, or even an emotional argument. It means the parties care about each other.
Right.
But when one party starts just rolling their eyes and dismissing the other, the marriage is over.
Yeah.
And the
And
whole
Andy,
eventual
let's see in a few hours what the comments are like on this video, because we've been covering this issue, and I think doing it in a responsible and thoughtful way. And I'm just amazed at the negativity of comments on this YouTube channel when we cover Alberta and we cover
I'm
concerns
used
that
to it
Albertans
myself.
have,
I think all of us
legitimate
in the West are.
concerns.
I tell my friends in the East, I warn them. They first of all, they dismiss it. Alberta would never leave, never separate. And I say to them, listen, one of the key differences between Quebec and Alberta is, as Quebecers are inclined to discussion, Albertans are inclined to action.
Mm-hmm.
Things will just happen, much like Czechoslovakia just happened. And once things get going out in the West, they take on a life of their own, and they move, and they don't just, they grow. Actually, they just move. We get into gear.
Yeah.
So, but this dismissive tone of
negative.
Well, Alberta would never.
I agree. It's very negative out there, and I don't understand it, because I think you may see it as a threat. Others may see it simply as Alberta seeking fairer terms after putting, tens of billions of dollars of equalization payments into a system that has now systemically underrepresented them politically, and happily use that money on the part of Ontario, another have-not province in recent years, to fund all kinds of things that we love out east here, but aren't necessarily in the interests or aligned with the priorities of Western Canada. So we need to figure this out. But Andy, let's end on this point, because it brings our discussion back to something you mentioned earlier, and a key part of your article for us, which is international recognition.
Yeah.
Let's push our minds in again a bit further into this hypothetical future. President Trump has come out. He's tacitly or explicitly acknowledged his support for an Alberta's separation movement, a radical reworking at minimum of Alberta's relationship with the rest of Canada. It's basically, Quebec plus one, however you want to imagine it. How do you think the rest of the world reacts to that? And to what extent could potentially the president's support here for an Alberta separatist movement, or reimagining of Alberta's place in the Federation, elicit international support, precisely because so many countries now are so attuned, frankly, for their own selfish reasons at times, in satisfying this president, or at least humoring along some of his more outrageous ideas and concepts?
We saw a preview of your point during the election campaign when he started talking about the 51st state. Countries around the world just sat in their hands. Even, I think the King of England, King Charles, put some emblems on his suits to signal, we're Canadian. But we didn't hear anything from the Prime Minister of Great Britain, President of France, President of Italy. There was no one putting their hands up saying, no, you're out of line. That's just wrong. So that movie's been played once, and it would be played again.
Yeah.
No one wants to get wrong-footed with the United States of America. That's a very bad decision to make.
Yeah, for things that frankly are not in those countries' interests, that are not particularly important to them.
And quite frankly, for the last decade, we've been so weakened economically, militarily.
Yeah.
No one gives a damn. Yeah. We're not even a player.
Yeah. Well, Andy, I hear the flapping of wings. Maybe chickens coming home to roost. I hope it's not, but I do urge our listeners and viewers to check out your excellent article on the Hub right now at www.thehub.ca.
And to sign up as lifetime subscribers.
Hey, I appreciate it. Andy Crooks, who's also the current chair of the Canadian Constitution Foundation, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks, Roger. Good work.
Well, thanks for tuning into this edition of Hub Hits. Please, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, click on that little notification bell, and you will get all of our latest videos sent to you immediately. Keep up to date on breaking news here from the Hub and Hub Hits. And if you're listening to this on our podcast, we always appreciate reviews and comments. Please share the link with friends and family too. Let's get this content out there, circulating, debating, and discussing the ideas that matter. That's what the Hub's all about. Thanks for joining the program today. Bye-bye.